Universal Orlando, Florida. There's 38 more days until Halloween Horror Nights. So in 38 days, just outside the entrance to the park, you'll be greeted by scare actors. And as you move your way up in between Despicable Me and Shrek, this is due to be the 30th anniversary zone, 30 years. Halloween Horror Nights, look at this construction underway. So look at these massive trusses, speakers, a couple of smaller foundational pieces. I'd expect that this will be very similar to the 25th anniversary zone. Oh, look at those pulleys up there. Way cool. And you've got lights up top, the Shrek building as well. We'll follow the path towards New York. And there's all kinds of food stands and drinks set up for the Olympics at the moment. And you can sit and watch the Olympics. But we generally see games set up along the side here for Horror Nights. Continue our journey here past Jimmy Fallon. On the corner of Macy's, you have the Jurassic World Tribute Store, which is going away within another week or so. So it does appear the Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store will be installed here after they disassemble this. But the zone here, lots of stuff set up now. This has been deemed the Seek and Destroy zone, which, much to my metal brothers and sisters, probably hoping that this would be based off of Metallica. My understanding, sadly, is that it is not Metallica related. Instead, this will be tied to an alien battle zone or so, I believe. Got some props out here. Look at this truck. Do not climb. Got our familiar barrels out here. Some weathered rims. And the other side. We've got towers set up too. This is number 1. Number 2, across the fairway on the corner of Finn's. Here you go. And there's railings up top. So I'm kind of getting the feeling that, much like the daytime meet and greet characters like at Marvel or throughout the parks, kind of feeling like the scare actors in the streets are not going to be right up in your face, but rather on platforms. Here's another platform here in front of the Mummy. You can see up top, there's literally like gates and hooks for people to be strapped in. So here's a little bit of a panoramic view here of the zone. Number 3 tower in the back there by the Palace Theater. You can see again, there's places for people to stand up above. There is a ton of people. And so this area back by San Francisco, outside the exit of Fast and Furious, this has been updated rumor-wise to believe that this will be based off of Crypt TV. I'm not entirely familiar with Crypt TV. I know that it is episodic horror available online. But this is always one of the tightest scare zones to try to fit people through. So no construction over in this area yet. And while there are lighting towers, this is to showcase the cars here for Fast and Furious. I guess I should stop the press here because there are lighting towers that are set up. This is going back further towards London. These may just be to provide some ambient lighting outside of London for the event. And by the way, for those that have not been here for Halloween Horror Nights before, they do not do the event inside of Diagon Alley or tie it into Harry Potter. That area is generally open for food and the ride. And honestly, it's usually pretty wide open if you're looking for any type of nighttime photography of the dragon. We've got more lighting towers here set up all around. And again, heading back towards Fear Factor. which will be what is used for the Jack Show, Carnival of Carnage, if you will. I believe that the signage is behind our Christmas paper here. And again, in the back of the extended queue of Men in Black, you can see Scary Ohio. That's all you get. As we make our way over towards the lagoon, I just want to point out that the Lagoon Horror Show will be back this year. And as some folks raved about this show, last Horror Nights, it was a little bit more 80s themed. For me, it's a good place to stop and rest if you're having a beverage and need to take a time out for a little bit. Runs multiple times through the night. And coming up through the walkway through the park, this is usually the prettiest scare zone of them all, the most decorated, etc. Got lighting up here already. Adjacent to that lighting, more on the other side. Speakers in place as well. And this is expected to be the Terra Cruntus scare zone, Terra Queen action. And I would believe at the end of this zone would potentially be a Terra Queen show. I've kind of used this space before for other shows like Academy of Villains and the Jack Show. And then we'll get to our final zone, usually the biggest of them all, expected to be the Eddie zone. Eddie, brother of Jack Schmidt, Jack the Clown. Ironically, last seen here in this zone during Halloween Horror Nights 25. Has a huge fan base. Not much set up here yet. Just a bunch of lighting up top that you can see. And back in the store with preview merchandise. The Beetlejuice shirt is back in stock. This sold out initially weeks back. And by the way, if you're ever interested in this creature from the Black Lagoon, he is for sale for $25,000. And the other shirts that have been released over time, all here as well. Hill House, Bride of Frankenstein. Those Jack Skulls sold out. So nothing left to show you over here. But I'm sure at this point, every day something is going to be pushed out, etc. And there'll be releases throughout Twitter. It's the thing to talk about. We've missed the horror makeup show today. Window enhancements coming. What? What's happening? So Universal, we're going to get out of here. We'll talk a little bit more when I get back home, especially about this and the impact to this. All right, back in the car instead of going home. No fancy bookshelves and knickknacks and everything behind me. I want to talk about two elephants in the room that are especially prevalent now because we are 38 days away from Horror Nights. One, multi-date tickets, meaning Frequent Fear, Rush of Fear, etc., still not for sale. I know that at least the inside scoop was that they'd be for sale within this week or next week. You know, first week of August supposedly was supposed to be the start date, but potentially earlier. I'm wondering at this point, and this is where the section comes where people either 50% of people jump to conclusions and say don't be a Karen, and if you're scared to go out of the house or things like that, stay home. But I referenced the mask in the park, and mask usage is starting to go back up a little bit. I think more importantly, in Florida, COVID is going back up at this point, and the Delta variant has really taken a stronghold. Orange County, where Universal is located, reported yesterday that not only the case rate, but the positivity rate for COVID in Orange County is at the same level as when COVID was at its highest peak last year. So what does that mean? Right now, we're 2 months or more into pretty much just having free reign with no restrictions and no masks and everybody bunched up together, etc. And I think it's impossible to put that genie back into the bottle. Last year, for the quasi horror nights that we had, the two houses, and then we had the Beetlejuice house and the theme bar and all that good stuff, it required masks in the park at that time. It required social distancing. Everyone was 6 feet apart. And you also were pulsed into the houses. So both Tooth Fairy and Bride of Frankenstein and Beetlejuice Only your parties were allowed to go in the house at any specific time, and you were kept 6 feet apart throughout your run in the house. They weren't letting people bunch up. You cannot do that for the amount of crowds that are going to come in for this normal HHN event. So I think it kind of puts the plans in motion for how do you alternatively keep people safe? How do you keep the crowd maintained at an acceptable level where the parks are making money and keep people safe? I think part of that ties into those frequent fear tickets or multi-day tickets. And I'm not thinking that they're not going to go for sale, because I think they're still going to go for sale. I think that they may make the prices adjusted to make it a little bit more considerable for you to think about buying those multi-day tickets so that they keep the volume lower. And I think they may also potentially limit the amount of those tickets that would be for sale. So I'm thinking, if they went on sale, let's say Friday, there may be a limited amount where they might sell out within a week or so, and they advertise it as a limited amount. That's not fact from anybody from Universal. That's speculation on my behalf. It's one way to keep the crowds to an acceptable size, because I think that they do have in their heads what that size cap should be, and they're obviously monitoring the safety and the advisement of what's happening within the state of Florida and the local Central Florida community. I think the other thing with the masks that'll be interesting to see is the CDC, as of today, is recommending that we go back to wearing masks indoors. And you can't make that a mandate because our governor has stated that we are not allowed to have mandates within the state, but private businesses can put mandates or can put requirements into effect for how they want their businesses to be. So I do think that at this point, unless there is a drastic remedy for the amount of cases that are happening, I think we're going to end up seeing masks be mandated back in the houses again. What that will do or how they work out spacing or things like that, I think that's almost next to impossible because when you come to Halloween Horror Nights, if you haven't been here before, you're pretty much just trained throughout the entire house. Trained meaning no distance between the person in front of you or behind you, and just moving in one long conga line throughout the house. I also think, like we saw with the construction that's taking place, where there's going to be multiple platforms for people to be on, that we may see either no scare actors in the streets, or more than likely probably a limited amount of scare actors in the streets. I think it's one thing where Universal allows their staff to either wear a mask or not wear a mask, and gives them that freedom, like people that are selling things or working the ticket booths and things like that. But actors don't necessarily have that choice in some cases. And therefore, when you see the Marvel characters out, they're behind chains or behind a wall or things like that, where you can get close, but you can't get next to them. I think it's kind of risky with the spread of coronavirus at this point to have your actors out in the streets potentially mixing things up. I also think the quandary here is that you have SeaWorld coming live with Howl-O-Scream this year, and you have multiple competitors that are going to be in the market, and if they're not following the same procedures, how do you follow the procedures? But I will say Universal kind of led the pack, including I thought doing a better job than even Disney when it came to the handling of COVID last year. But all that said, those are my thoughts. We should be recording another Four Hauntsmen, I think, tomorrow night, so we'll probably delve a little bit more into the event overall, and we'll put a link to the Four Hauntsmen YouTube page down below, and you can also check that out on iTunes and everything. You should be able to see that, or wherever podcasts are hosted, should be able to see a new episode by the weekend or so. As for the channel going back to check on construction every time a new thing is dropped in a street, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think we'll wait till we see some real substance taking place in the streets to be able to go out and check things out. We are very much looking forward to haunt season. We have our tickets, ironically. We don't have Halloween Horror Nights tickets yet because we are also waiting for Frequent Fear tickets. But we have our tickets for both Howl-O-Scream Orlando and Tampa. Super psyched about that. Already planning our trip to Netherworld, where they are celebrating 25 years this year. It's going to be ridiculous. They announced their themes today also. So much haunt goodness happening this Halloween season. So In any event, that's it for now. Thanks a lot for coming along. Thank you very much for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great day. We'll see you guys. Subscribe to the cheap seats, or he's gonna kill me.